Boiled Haggerty in the ring now.
Today is the heyday of the pretty boy.
Kowalski is called killer
The
from
Flying
Black
J.
Stanley of Chicago.
She likes it.
Oh, boy, that can hurt.
Right here at ringside while we go in for a riot of roughhouse that's flatly called wrestling.
Even looks to me as though Valentino's punching. Haggerty's still got some bounce. Watch out here. Couple of burly characters coming together. Haggerty gave him that foot once again in the stomach. There's something new. Haggerty with the leg up on the lower rope. Haggerty, oh boy, you could break a leg pretty quick that way. Haggerty concentrating on that left leg. He's going to do the same thing. He's putting his full weight on it. Oh, boy, that can hurt.
Hard-Boiled Haggerty's story, in many ways, personifies the American dream of rags to riches. His parents first met at the U.S. Immigration Center at Ellis Island. His father, Joe Stanahowski, was from Lithuania. His mother, Josephine, was from Ireland. The young couple was soon married and moved to Highland Park in Los Angeles, California. It was here that Josephine gave birth to a boy that they christened Don Stanahowski. He was born on the 2nd of April, 1925, in the county hospital in Los Angeles, California. Don, or Hard-Boiled as he is called today, was one of 5 boys. He also had a sister. These were anything but good times for the average American. The South and Southwest of the USA was going through a terrible drought. Farmers were losing their farms at the rate of $500,000 a year. It was not surprising that as the young Hard-Boiled Haggerty grew up in California, right next door to the Hollywood movie industry, movies were later to be a huge factor in his life. By the time Haggerty started attending school, it was the dirty 30s, and Haggerty remembers well those hard times.
I had a very difficult childhood because I had 4 brothers and a sister. And we were what you would call poor, because there was many times that I would go hungry at night. My dad was a cook, and luckily he was a cook because he would bring home the scraps from the restaurant, and it was tough. It was tough. When I was young, I had to do things. I had to get a job. By the time we were 13, we had to buy our own clothes. I had to get up every morning at 3 o'clock and the Los Angeles Times, and 7 days a week, and deliver that newspaper. And then I'd have another job besides that. I'd be an usher in a theater. That's where I got the theater bug, watching those movies. I would visualize myself as being one of those people on the screen. I got a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, to Denver University, where I majored in physical education. I graduated. I played then the next few years. I played with the Detroit Lions football teams. 1 year with the Detroit Lions and 2 years with the Green Bay Packers. I was a left defensive tackle, and I was what you call on the suicide squad. That was on the kickoff team, where you'd run down and wham yourself into the opposing team, and that's why I have a bad knee. Here I made, for 3 years, say a total of $15,000, and here I had to have 2 years ago, I went and finally had to have my knee done, a complete new knee, titanium steel, a whole new knee, and that cost $55,000. So it didn't work out too well.
Now Haggerty goes into a wrist lock and takes down Valentino. But not for long. Here's a hip roll by Valentino. Haggerty with a head scissor, and both men back on their feet. Haggerty's mad already.
How I came into wrestling, I wrestled in college a little bit, and I met a guy in Denver named Danny Los. He was a professional wrestler. He says, you're a hell of a wrestler. You know, he saw me wrestle some college matches, and he said, "You ever think about wrestling professionally?" I said, "Not really." He said, "Come on and wrestle with me." So I'd wrestle him, and he said, "You know, you'd make some money." He got me my first match, and I wrestled this guy, and I'm telling you, I thought that wrestling was a cinch because here I'd wrestled college. I said, you know, I started sounding off. I said, you know, this wrestling is a lot of fake baloney, you know what I mean? So don't worry, I'll take, he says, watch it, because this guy's like, he's almost 60 years old, and at this time I'm about 32. I said, what do you mean? This old man's gonna do me harm? So we get out and we have this match. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I almost cried. I was in tears. This guy jerked me around, jerked my neck. I didn't know which way was up. I thought I was gonna die. I learned a lesson in my life. Keep your mouth shut when you don't know what you're talking about, because this guy was a tough guy, and I kept my mouth shut about wrestling ever since.
The world will always offer glittering prizes to those who have stout hearts. And in the wrestling world, Boiled Haggerty fits that billing to a T. Haggerty had great need of that stout heart during World War II.
During World War II, I was on the flagship USS New Jersey. We would be the center ship, and all those dive bombers would try to get to that center. And I was on a gunner, a 40 millimeter, and shooting those things, and they would be coming around us and all that stuff. And I was on 9 major battles, Midway and all those. I got like a ribbon with nine stars on it.
Showing his true colors, he came up with that boot to the stomach. You can see pretty well there, perhaps, in that shot, what he's doing. He's laying that fist in there. He's got the elbow smash that the Gallagher brothers made famous around here.
In the ring, you know, I had a reputation. That's why they call me Hard-Boiled Haggerty. Because I didn't have too many people try to test me or get too cute with me in the ring, because they know I was a hell of a crazy guy in the ring. I was young and crazy. So if they try to get a little cute with me or try to pull something too fancy, that I would retaliate. In other words, I would give them a receipt.
Boiled Haggerty, he was one of the people who could handle himself with anybody. Didn't take no shit from nobody.
Mike right out of the ring, and oh, he might have hurt his leg that time. It bent up under him as he hit on the floor here right in front of us.
One of the highlights of my wrestling career was wrestling the tag team championship, the AWA, in 1960-61 with Lenny Montana. That was one of the highlights, of course. Lenny broke his leg, and that was it. But the saddest time that I ever had was when my partner, Lenny Montana, died. My tag team partner, my good friend. I get a little emotional talking about it.
Karate deadly. Wrestlers very soft. Who's gonna pay for my table?
I've made over 100 TV shows, 35 motion pictures, 40 commercials, national, international, and regional, and so on. Actually belonging to the member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which means that I vote on Academy Awards.
Some would say that Haggerty gave an Academy performance in this commercial for Meineke Muffler.
When you come to Meineke Discount Mufflers, relax.
I'm not gonna pay a lot for this muffler!
You're not going to pay a lot.
I'm not gonna pay a lot for this muffler.
You're not going to pay a lot at Meineke.
Now, the way that I got into acting was that, of course, you know, when I was wrestling, you're on TV a lot. You're on these crazy interviews. I used to stay awake at night thinking about what am I going to say. I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to do this. So you get a lot of exposure, and you learn really how to act on those interviews, because those interviews are the greatest things on TV. wrestling to me. So that was the reason. And a person that saw me on the interviews, he said, you know, did you ever think of being in the movie, you know? And I said, well, I don't know. So they tested me, and I turned out pretty well. So I got my first role was a small little role, but that mushroomed into my big role that I made. The biggest one that it made me was with Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood, was called Paint Your Wagon in 1969. I did everything in that, even sang in the movie. Some of my memories of Lee Marvin are rather fond because he helped me a lot. When we had this particular great scene, he would help me. He said, listen, Haggerty, meet me in the bar and have a few drinks with me, and it'll ease you up. And I said, you know, Lee, I'm not a drinking man. He said, well, just a few, you know. So I went down there, and before you knew it, I had 3 or 4. So now we go do the scene. And the director says, cut, cut. And Lee Marvin said, well, what's the matter? Wasn't I going along? He said, did you rehearse this thing? He said, with who? I said, with Lee Marvin. Stay away from that drunk. That was it. But he got me in trouble, but he was a good guy, and everybody laughed, and they got a kick out of it. So I had to stay away from him when it come to drinking. In a television show, perhaps one of my favorite parts was I played a guy called Tiger Man on Buck Rogers. I made about 9 of those. I was the bodyguard of Princess Ardella. And I had this big outfit on, and I would fight with his swords and so on. It was sort of a glamorous, adventurous thing. It was like a kid's dream, you know, fighting with a sword and all the get-up and go on. And a TV show, that was perhaps my favorite. But a thing in my mind, I think the best thing that I'm happy about was a picture called Mickey and Maude with Dudley Moore and Amy Irving, where I played her father. This was the first movie that I had that I could have my daughter watch. It wasn't violent. In other words, I played a nice old guy. Usually the movies, I'm usually strangling the person or raping him or whatever, beating the hell out of him. But in this movie, I played a nice guy. And it was a nice role, and I enjoyed that movie.
Look at him go now. Billy Lyons using those forearm smashes. Getting results at the other end, too.
Boiled Haggerty has been married just once. He first met his wife Virginia at a hotel. This is how he remembers that first date.
I met my wife years ago in Boston. I met her living in this hotel that I was staying at, and she was very pretty. But that time, I had a thing on. I tried a wig on, and I had this wig on when I met her, and I could see that the vibes were there for both of us. And so I asked her, would you like to go to a wrestling match? She said, I would love to. I've always wanted to go to, since I come to America. She come from England, you know. So I took her, and as I'm driving to the small town where I'm going to wrestle, I said, you know, I have to take off this toupee that I have because I'm going to wrestle tonight. And she said, you're going to what? So I took off the toupee, and her mouth dropped. So I said, I'm not going to go to the arena with you. Just go to the box office and say, I'm with Haggerty, and whisper it slow.
His opponent from Los Angeles, California, weighing 251, Hard-Boiled Haggerty.
And there she sees me coming into the arena. Hard-Boiled Haggerty. People are booing, screaming, hollering at me. And I looked at her, and she was just slumped in her chair. And I took her home that night. She didn't say a word all the way home. But at night, the next day, she thought I was rather cute.
Look at Haggerty. He looks right up at Lou Scosa and says, once again, I didn't do it. That elbow, you can't call it a smash because an elbow smash is more actually a forearm shot to the chin, but these fellas are all using the point of their elbows these days.
Haggerty's marriage lasted 16 years. Today, he is left with a beautiful memory, his only child, a daughter, by the name of Donna.
I have a daughter who lives in Palm Springs. She's a professional singer, and people always ask me, where did your daughter get this beautiful voice? Because she sings it so beautifully. She sings at the Ritz-Carlton, the best hotels, Vegas, the best places in the world. And I said, well, she got this from her dad. Oh, there's a coach coming in. If you listen, you can hear it a clip-clopping over the hill. And the sound that you hear is as good to your ear, like a coach full of dreams come true.
Gee, Haggerty wrestled pretty cleanly there for about 3 minutes, and then he cut loose with the rough stuff. Valentino made like Rudolph that time. Now he's going to throw Haggerty out on the floor. Haggerty's hanging on. He'd be better off letting go of that top rope, and he did that time. Right behind us he goes.
The funniest match that I ever had, it wasn't too funny at the time, was years ago. At one time, I wore a long robe, a long silk robe, and then for many years I had a little short jacket. But this was the time that I wore just the long robe. And we came into the ring and we introduced, and the referee said, and the announcer says, and in this corner we have Hard-Boiled Haggerty. And I came back and flipped on my ring thing, and all I had was my jockstrap. I've had a lot of awards, but you know, in wrestling, that Mike Mazurki Award was something really, really special because I liked Iron Mike. He was a nice guy. He was one of the guys that really got me interested in acting too, because you know, he was a hell of an actor. And the reason I got the Iron Mike Mazurki Award was that a person had to excel in two things, in wrestling and some other field, also in acting. And that's the reason that I got the Iron Mike Mazurki Award. I think the highlight of my wrestling career was wrestling Lou Thez. To me, he was the greatest wrestler of all time. A champion in and out of the ring. He was the toughest guy I ever had to wrestle. I never could whip this guy. In other words, I wrestled him 3 times, disqualified once, and wrestled him to a draw twice, and I just could never beat him. And so I was just a United States heavyweight champion. I never could get to be the world champion. And of course, I've had a lot of injuries, you know, minor ones, twisting this, we have all these small injuries. But I think the worst I ever got, it was in Canada. It was a small town in Chilliwack. It was a riot. I was wrestling this particular wrestler, and the people were so infuriated that they came in the ring. And they came in with chairs and everything. I was punching them off the apron. They were just coming in the ring left and right. And here come a guy with a great big chair. So I put my hand up to block that chair. Boom, and it broke my arm. Guy hits me, breaks my nose. I'm bleeding. I can only fight with one hand. And the rest of the wrestlers are trying to come in the ring, and to help me, the rest of the guys, they finally get in the ring and drag me out, and I was a bloody mess.
When I think of Hard-Boiled Haggerty as a historian, I remember many conversations with him, how he took great pride in his personal appearance. Here was a man who drove big Cadillacs in the 50s, had tailor-made suits, and one of the hardest parts of his professional wrestling career in the early 60s, he had his nose broken in the ring. He had many matches booked. I mean, it was a lot of money riding on his shoulders, and he had to wear boxing headgear to protect his features. And of course, there's a happy end to the story because Haggerty is a very handsome man, and he eventually went on to become quite a successful movie star. He was a big-name money wrestler, and was a success in everything that he tried in life. Hard-Boiled Haggerty was truly a classic.
My meeting with John F. Kennedy, that's one of the proudest possessions, as you see in my house coming into my hallway. You see a big picture of me shaking hands with JFK, and he signed this picture and was glad to sign it for me. That made the really picture authentic. He was a friendly person, and he was a wrestling fan, which was very surprising. He liked wrestling, and he said his dad Joe, he said, was just crazy about wrestling.
It is said that a man is nature's sole mistake. In Haggerty's case, nature is a thing of beauty.
It's difficult to realize that a guy like Hard-Boiled Haggerty would love flowers, but I've actually won awards. I've won prizes for these. I have ribbons that I've won in contests for these gardenias, my flowers. There's just no feeling like in the world when I get in that little sports car, my little Bugatti, with the wind blowing through my hair, racing down the highway, the Pacific Coast Highway. The toughest things I've gotten has been later life when I've had, of course, I had prostate cancer. I had that removed. And of course, I had skin cancer. I just had things removed from a surgeon on my face. Cost me 3 times $6,000 to have this removed. That's about the only thing, just getting old. That's why I like the good life today. That's why I have a sports car, a Bugatti, a $1 million home, a home in Palm Springs, because I like the good life, because I remember those bad times, the tough times.
The official decision, Red Lion's the winner. There's a surprise. Look at Haggerty. Oh, is he mad? He's after Manny Weiss. He's after the referee. Look at that Cappy Caprino. He's fearless. He went in after him.
You know, looking back at my 75 years, if I had to change anything, I don't really know. I've had so damn much fun, had such damn good times, I don't think I would change anything. Well, I'd like to be remembered as a guy who, when it came down to it, he was a good old boy. And they'll always remember that. Although I was a mean mother, I never backstabbed anybody, I never cheated anybody, I never lied to anybody out of anything.
There's a coach coming in, if you listen you can hear it, a clip flopping over the hill, and the sound that you hear is as good to your ear, like a coach full of dreams come true. Beautiful, huh?